And that's why you should always babysit your neighbor's baby. What's going on, everybody? This is the Coverbandconfidential Podcast, the podcast for cover band musicians and band leaders to learn how to rock more and suck less. In Atlanta, Georgia, I am Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I am Dan Ray.
You know, sometimes you got to come through at the last minute. Our next door neighbors were going to see Dead & Company. Their babysitter dropped out. We stepped in. And I got a nice bottle of sparkling rosé as a thank you. So
listen,
you know, cheers to all y'all.
Cheers to all y'all and that baby. This last week, I went to see here in town in Greensboro the touring company of Frozen the musical.
Okay.
Amazing.
I mean, of course it's going to be.
I mean, it's Disney, it's Broadway.
Yep. Yes.
Amazing. And as a theater kid who did my tour on stage for sure, but also did a lot of tech and a lot of behind the scenes stuff. There was a couple of moments where a song would end big. It happened at the end of Let It Go, right? And Elsa's like singing the thing. And on her last note, the stage lights all drop. And in the fraction of a second after, there's a photo sort of pop. There's like a light pop right on her that just lights go down, pop. And it was just this, I can't even tell you the effect that was like chilling. It was like something not human. It was a little magical. I don't know. It was, and it happened 2 or 3 times in the show on Elsa when she ended a song big. This like magic pop thing happened on her with the lights. It was amazing. It was amazing. That was one thing there was a lot that was amazing about the show.
Lots of things.
Yeah. It was one very cool thing.
Yeah. I have found that I am, there's something about musical theater that like just hits me in the feels.
Oh yeah.
Cause what was the last? Oh, it was the Matilda musical, the movie.
Nice. Yeah.
And,
yeah.
I'm just sitting there like everybody's watching it, like our entire family's watching it. And I'm just quietly sobbing to myself. Like, It's not a sad part. It's just something about that particular medium that just gets me.
For me, it's that moment where like everything's breaking loose and suddenly she's in a hot air balloon talking about how it's quiet.
Yeah.
Oh, I fall apart.
Or like that thing where it like zooms out where she's like laying on top of the it's really good.
This gorgeous little moment where like she's full on dissociating. Like it's bad. Like what's happening in the real world, super bad right now.
Super bad.
But she's fine because it's quiet. Not silent, but quiet. It's like, oh man. I was the same way through that whole Frozen show because like, you know, it's about a family that's messed up. It's about a family that doesn't talk anymore. And I was halfway in tears through the whole first act and then most of the second. Yeah. Musical theater gets me hard. Gets me real hard. Yeah. No, sorry, pardon me. I said that badly. I'm sorry.
Tell us more about what musical theater makes you, bud.
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to.
Oh my God!
After I said it, I said it badly. It gets me in the feels in a hard way.
Please just don't cut any of this out.
I don't know if we're going to edit that. We're probably going to edit that.
No, you have to leave it in.
Okay.
We'll put an E on the episode. Who cares? No, who gives a shit?
Fair.
There you go.
All right, here we go. No, that's it. We said the S word.
Yep. On a completely unrelated note, as a person who just loves pop culture and music in general, we watched Ready Player One last night. And I'd read the book. My son had read the book. And the movie divulged from the source material just enough to make it entertaining and while not disappointing. Because it could very well be, they didn't do this. And there was definitely those moments. But the way they twisted the story, it was still super fun. Yeah. And we really enjoyed it. My wife and I laughed through the entire Shining part because, again, my son has no frame of reference for that. And so when they go in The Shining, they walk into the lobby of the Overlook. Yeah. And it's just like, oh, no.
It's bad.
And so every time something was about to happen, I'm just like cracking up and my son does not understand.
Right.
And then they went into room 273 and I was like, close your eyes. It's going to take a minute.
It's all
It's going to have to take a minute. Anyway. Yeah. So other than that, what's been going on?
I'm looking at a very busy June. I got the Thursday nights all booked up. I have most Saturdays booked up. Taylor and I are doing the acoustic duo, and it's been a long time since we've done that, at a private pool club this Saturday. So that's going to be fun. We have done one at a private pool club before. And when these people reached out, I thought it was like new management at the same place that I already had, but it was not. It was actually a new, totally cold reach out. So that's cool. I'm now booked there to do the duo this weekend and then the karaoke later in the summer. Nice. So that'll be fun. And then here's the thing. We've been doing the trivia on Thursdays at this bar in Greensboro called Little Brother Brewing, right on the main strip in Greensboro. So you are the soundtrack of a major corner of downtown Greensboro. This last week, for the first time, 0 people were there. And that's only happened one time before, and not at this place. There's usually at least like people around the bar can hustle up and talk into playing, and then they have a great time and promise they'll come back. And for the most part, I don't see them again because people promise things. I walked in and there was like nobody in there drinking, which has never happened. And as I set up, nobody came in. And as I got ready to play, nobody came in. And I said, look, I'm just going to put some music out the windows. We'll just see what happens. So I just played solo acoustic for half an hour and nobody came in. And I said to the bartender, like, I don't know how you want to handle this tonight, but it doesn't seem like it's going to happen. And he got on the phone with his boss and they agreed to pay me. But this standing gig is $200. He said, how do you feel about 75? And I was like, more than fair. It's a bummer of a night for all of us.
Pretty solid hourly rate, though.
Oh, I'll take it. Yeah. No, it's what I mean. More than fair. Like, I'd have taken 50. I'd have taken, I don't know what I would have taken. But so one thing I can say is I fully stepped off of my social game around it. Haven't been marketing it, haven't been advertising it. It's been about like picking up my regulars, and they know it from the email list. And so that's something, but I'm going to get back on regularly posting events around it and trying to market it a little better. So yeah, it's a thing that happens. Some old mentor of mine in business one time said, Dan, sometimes you eat the bear and sometimes the bear eats you.
Well, which one, what is the bear?
Yeah. Well,
in this metaphor,
the metaphor is like, in this case, we didn't kill him. Bear ate us tonight. So that's how that went. But we'll be back at it next week. And it's cool because I don't have to learn a new theme show. I can it was female artists. We'll just do female artists again because I didn't have a chance to play that music. And so
there you go.
Yeah, that'll be all good. How about you? How's your week?
So last week was the finale of this live band karaoke run that we've been doing.
Right.
And this was a unique show on a lot of fronts. And if I'm being perfectly transparent, on paper, it sounded like it was going to be a dud. So for those of you who have been keeping track, this was a private event for a company or an organization that does like summer camps for kids. And it was a daylight, midweek, dry event on a Christian college campus for 60 minutes. This was
the group that had set list feedback for you.
Yes. So because it was a church adjacent organization, they had notes. Yeah. So I sent them our live band karaoke list, and they sent me back a very redlined revision deal. So they cut probably all of the available songs we had by over half. Mm-hmm. And they did make some additional requests, and we landed on 3 that we could add. Those 3 were Life is a Highway, Rascal Flatts, Call Me Maybe, and there was one other one. I can't think of it. Nope, it's not there. But there was another one.
Another one.
Another one. Yep. And so in our situation, it was like, well, we've got 60 minutes to fill. Now, I made it very clear to the client that 60 minutes was going to be tight.
Yeah.
Because, when you've got switchovers and you've got signups and that kind of thing, we don't get a whole lot of people up on stage. And I think on their side, they were a little nervous about the prospect of people signing up because it apparently was for like college age kids or like freshly graduated high school kids. Okay. And do they understand what live band karaoke is? Are they going to vibe with the songs on the song list? There were a lot of question marks as far as they were concerned. But this is another one of those things where like production was provided. So all we had to do was roll in with our in-ears and our lyrics and stuff.
Yeah.
So that was cool. What was not cool was the lyric database that I had been using crashing the day before the event. And we were using my company software. And so I'm like literally texting my boss that this thing is not working and doing all the things that I would normally tell other people to do. I was doing them myself. Never figured it out. I ended up having to use my personal machine. For some reason, it worked on one machine and not the other. We got it sorted out, but that was a really unnecessary wrinkle in the in the situation that I did not need. Not only that, we also had an MC who was not experienced with this kind of gig. This was our neighbor friend who decided to she was willing to step in last minute because it was the last day of school and we had 20 other things that needed to happen while this was going on.
Right.
But a couple of things, some fortuitous moments happened. One was that our soon-to-be new bass player rolled in with our drummer. And so I had another warm body who was actually able to operate the lyrics. And I'll get into why he had to do that and not the MC in just a second. And also that we kind of had our A lineup. It wasn't our current MD bass player, but it was the guy who was the number one guy before he got too busy. So as far as the band went, we were firing on all cylinders. We were rearing to go, like everything worked out. So we drive almost 2 hours to this place. It's a place called Berry College, which is outside of Rome, Georgia, just out in the sticks for real. I'll tell you how big this campus is. When I got to the front gate to enter the college, I had to drive 3 miles into the campus to get to the performance area.
Wow.
That's how big it was. The other thing that's weird about this place is that it's a nature reserve. And so there are just casual deer everywhere. Again, midday, nobody's paying attention. And there's just 5 deer here, 3 deer there, just living their lives. Like totally unconcerned with the cars driving by or people like in proximity, just casual deer.
Casual Deer is a band name.
It is.
All day long.
I now own the URL to casualdeer.com.
Good.
So we get there, we get set up. They feed us, everything's cool. Again, it's a dry event, so, no fun there. And we basically have 2 hours to get everything rearing to go. The event's supposed to start at 8. We were supposed to be done by 9 because it's an outdoor event. There's a hard cutoff because there's a curfew. We aren't sure what's going to happen. We've got a handful of songs that we're going to play as they're kind of coming in. And we'll just, we'll kind of feel the night out. As they're walking out, we start playing Sugar We're Going Down by Fall Out Boy. And by the time that song is done, the first page of karaoke songs is filled out.
Wow.
And there were over 500 people that just walked into this pavilion.
Wow.
And let me tell you, they were there to have a good time.
That's awesome.
And the crowd response, the engagement, the energy level of this event was out of bounds. There was just this electricity in the air that like we don't normally get to feel, especially at a private event. That's not really how these things work. But to be on stage and literally just bodies as far as the eye can see. And they're jumping and dancing and whatever. And the whole thing just went over like gangbusters. Yeah. So this particularly drab sounding Thursday evening gig turned out to be this crazy fun night for us.
That's awesome.
One of the other
surprises
things
in the karaoke?
Other than stuff that we had prepped for didn't show up because, again, I had a crash scenario where things weren't where they were supposed to be. So in the process of doing that transfer over, Call Me Maybe's lyrics didn't make their way over. We ended up doing it anyway. And because I was basically kind of like, my vocals were very high in the stage front monitor so that I could kind of guardrail them if they get lost or turned off, whatever. But between that and the crowd screaming the lyrics, like the people on stage had no problem.
We're fine.
Yeah. The other one that went over really well was Life is a Highway. Like, didn't really think that would resonate with a bunch of kids that age. But again, it's from the Cars soundtrack. And that's how those kids know that song.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where I felt really, really old.
I've done, I'm a believer.
Yep.
For a long time.
Again, Smash Mouth and Shrek,
is
man.
only valuable because it's on the Shrek soundtrack. Yeah.
So as you were saying that, the third song was All Star.
All Star. There you go.
That's what it was.
All right.
And I totally forgot,
Yeah,
but
well,
you just reminded me.
there
So there you go. It was wild. I've got a bunch of footage, and then they had a media team that was shooting video, and I'm hoping to get my hands on some of that footage. The other thing that was really funny is that towards the end of the sets, in between songs, the kids started yelling drum solo like in between every single song. So Nathan got to do like a proper drum solo at the end, which is something, again, never happens. And it was a wild night. As wild as a Christian college dry Thursday event could be. That's how wild it was.
All right. That's great.
And as we were packing up, we broke a record. I think we were on the road 30 minutes after the last note was played.
Sweet. But
I did walk up to the guy who booked us, and I was like, next time, let's do it for 2 hours. And he was like, absolutely, which means there will be a next time.
Right.
It was a very well-paying gig, and I will gladly take another opportunity to play for a crowd like that because it was a blast and a half.
That's awesome.
All we need to do is come correct with a bunch of new songs that fall under the category of what they need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. A bunch of clean tunes that.
It's the cleanest tunes, so clean.
Yeah.
But we can't do So Fresh, So Clean because that's not clean enough.
Yeah.
Well, fantastic.
Yeah.
That summarizes my week so far.
That's good. I have one. I have one lesson I learned from gear this week.
Okay.
Do you have something else to say?
No, just saying we've got our next thing's coming up in about 3 weeks. We got some prep time and some prep work to do, and then we're on to the next thing. So by all means, take it away.
So on Sunday afternoon, I had a solo acoustic date, 3 to 6, just a chill afternoon. And it was at Pig Pounder, the place that I've played a lot of times with my current project, my last project. Seems like pre-COVID, they were a really hot happening place. And now I think they might be an afternoon kind of deal, an older crowd afternoon. I think that the vibe has changed there. But I called a morning rehearsal that day because my bassist Zoe is not available for a gig that we just picked up, and I've got a sub who is the bassist for a jam band called Viva La Muerte that I played with for a while. And he's a super good dude, loves playing covers because he knows them, and like he's not a deadhead, and they keep throwing him dead, stuff. Like he's kind of over it. So we spent Sunday morning from like 9 to noon getting the first set together, and he came really prepared, really like I expected to get about half of the way, maybe 2/3 of the way through the first set. We got all the way through the first set. And he was, at some point we were into stuff that he hadn't, I had sent him the PDF of all the charts out of Band Helper, and he'd printed some of them, but didn't get all the way through the first set. And we expended his paper and then like, well, look, the next one's a 4-chord no-brainer. Here's how that goes. And then the one after that, it's also a 4-chord no-brainer. Here's how that goes. So we actually made it all the way through the first set, which was great. But walking out of that rehearsal, I was starting to feel like my voice was a little bit like we weren't using in-ears for that rehearsal because our sub isn't on them. So I had the speaker set up. So I was singing over top of that, which isn't fantastic. And I could feel my voice. I could feel my throat. It wasn't great. So I came home, took a little bit of a nap, had a lot of hydration and some lunch, and went out to the show 3 to 6. And I rolled up feeling like I'm walking into this one a little bit burned already, like a little bit burned out.
Yeah, that's a lot of exertion.
It is. In
a single day.
If I could show you my fingertips at the end of that show, that was torn up good. It was 6 hours of playing that day.
That's a lot.
So I pulled out of my bag a device that I bought a few months ago, thinking this might be a situation I'd be in. It is the X-Vive U4 in-ear monitor wireless system. And what it is a transmitter that plugs into an XLR port and then a little receiver, small, much smaller than the Mi Pro that I use, that goes on your belt. And I'd never used it before. I'd never even really played with it. I set it up here in my house one time and kind of walked around the house and played guitar to myself in it and made my way all the way around the house. No breakouts, no nothing. It's all good. And so I plugged it into the aux out of my Electro Voice M50s. And the M50 has a mixer on the back of it, and the aux is a separate mix. So I could bring my vocals up a little bit more than I really wanted them coming out of the main speaker. And I did the whole first set with in-ear monitoring happening with me acoustic. And I'll tell you, by the end of it, my voice felt great. There was no pushing. There was no nothing. I felt myself, heard myself really well. Felt like I was performing really well. And the feedback I got at the break was that the mix in the room was fantastic. And it was really good. And then at the break, I felt good and took my in-ears out and just hung them over my shoulders and did the whole second set without them. Didn't need them. It was fine. But the thing to take away from that for me is that like in-ears really can solve problems you're having vocally because
100%.
Yeah, it prevents you from pushing over top of how the room sounds. It prevents you from, I didn't really know I had a falsetto until I started using in-ears. And I do. I actually can do that if I let the mic do its job and I don't have to try to push a falsetto out. It just picks me up. So it was pretty great. I think I can recommend the X-Vive U4 in-ear monitor system. It's pretty cheap. It's not a lot.
So one thing to note about those, you do need to be a bit careful because it is one of those 2.4 gigahertz dealies.
For sure.
And so if you're in a busy RF environment or Wi-Fi environment, it could get a little iffy.
Absolutely.
But like in your case, you're at a venue and you're probably no more than 5-10 feet from the deal.
Yeah.
You'll probably be fine.
Yeah. And I was. It didn't break up once. It sounded great. It's a $230 unit. Mm-hmm. I think I can pretty strongly recommend it. There was every chance that by the end of the first set, I would have been hurting bad and then struggling my way through the rest of the show. And I was not. I felt great by the end of the show.
Well, there you go.
So there you go.
I know a ton of people that swear by those little units, especially for solo work, because they are so kind of low profile and easy to set up, and they're not terribly fussy. So
just jams right into an XLR. I mean, you could set those up coming out of an aux of your mixer if you wanted.
Totally.
Piece of cake.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the stuff is getting cheaper and easier to access, and so it's going to keep happening. Yeah. And it's going to be great. And I can easily say that I'm able to do what I do because I've used in-ear monitors for all of this time.
Yeah.
It helped me learn how to sing higher without singing louder.
Right.
It helped me learn how to do all the things that I currently do. And I sing much more consistently. Mm-hmm. And I can do more than because in college, before in-ears and stuff, I was blowing my voice out all the time. Would go to like the ENT once, twice a year to make sure I hadn't destroyed my voice.
Right.
I get in-ears. I actually take the time to get them dialed in, and haven't had a single issue since, really. Yeah. Other than just being sick as hell.
Yeah. So. No, it takes a problem from inside, right? Rather than pushing to come over top of something outside. Yeah.
There you go.
Big fan.
Awesome. So, is it time to do a review?
I think so.
So we've been talking about the recent influx of reviews, and they keep coming in. We had another one pop up after we released our episode last week, and we're loving you guys reaching out and sharing what you think. So I'm going to let Dan take this one.
What a privilege. The one we're going to read this week is from Jesse from the band Voodoo Lane. Here's what he writes. Secret weapon for cover band domination. I've been a weekly listener for a year or two now, and I really enjoy this show. These guys give insanely relevant advice. For instance, I just filed for an LLC for our band last week, and voila! This week's episode is about forming a formal business entity. I've been in cover bands off and on for the last 20 plus years, and I'm currently in the best band I've been in yet. I've taken inspiration from many things I've learned on this podcast and implemented them into what we do. They can teach old dogs new tricks. Love it. Keep up the great work. Thanks, Jesse. It's a 5-star review from Jesse from Voodoo Lane. I Googled Voodoo Lane. I think I found the right band. They're in Ohio. And assuming I found the right Voodoo Lane website, I think I have because there is a member they list called Jesse.
Well, there you go.
They're pretty freaking awesome. So just check out Voodoo Lane.
Very cool. If you want to have your band shouted out on the show, leave us a 5-star review. It's pretty easy to do. I'll let our wrap up kind of explain how to do that. We can just move on to the next thing. Got it. So the big thing that we wanted to talk about this week, again, sometimes we have to kind of rack our brains on what we want to talk about, and other times you guys kind of inspire the topic. And this week is an example of that. In the Patreon Slack, we had a very monumental thing happen. Within 24 hours, 2 of our patrons became first-time fathers.
Yeah.
And on top of just being so excited for these guys and wanting to support them and show that we love the guys that tune in every week and support the show, we also are in that club.
Yep.
And, whenever we have had folks come into the group, we've had a lot of first-time dads that have kind of been around. John from Level Up in New York is another example of another first-time dad that's popped up over the past 12 months. And Mike Schulte, another great example. I think it's worth having a conversation about the dynamics of being a working musician who's also a parent.
Yeah.
So in my world, I've got 2 boys, 8 and 12. So I've been at this kind of parenting while playing thing longer than some, but I mean, geez, there's guys in this group that are, empty nesters. They've been through the whole process. So I won't speak as an expert just from my experience. Now, in my case, when our eldest was born, I was still touring as a professional original musician. And it became very clear very quickly that kind of schedule and lifestyle wasn't going to work in my situation. And I wanted to be around to see my kids. And I know that a lot of the issues that people have in their relationships when it comes to performing is the time away.
Yep.
And when my band folded, it became pretty clear that I wasn't going to pursue getting back on the road with another group, and that I just kind of needed to stay local and kind of figure out what I wanted to do next. And in that situation, I ended up getting plugged in with the guys from Yacht Rock Review and started working around town as a fill-in guy and just kind of finding my way into the corporate band, cover band kind of scene. And then as that kind of progressed, I was able to bring my wife into that situation, and now we get to work together. And that definitely helped with some issues. If time away is the big sticking point, that eliminated that issue, but it introduced a completely new issue around the logistics of finding childcare when both of the parents are playing gigs all the time. So that was a unique challenge, but we've now kind of gotten, we leaned into our community, our tribe of people. And we leaned into parents and grandparents and brothers and sisters and neighbors and babysitters. And we cashed in a lot of chips, as far as relational capital goes.
Yeah.
And, at this point, our boys are old enough where we can sometimes, not all the time, let them stay at home, or sometimes they come along and they help out. So that's been a really cool development in my kind of journey as a parent. Now, granted, being in a band, you would think is kind of a cool thing, but as soon as your dad does it, it's not cool at all. So I get very little cachet, other than my son's being able to go to cool events like we did that Southern Fried Gaming deal where there's all those free arcade games and that kind of stuff. It's the only event that my kids are hounding me about wanting to go to. Otherwise, they typically couldn't be bothered. But any public event where it doesn't end at 2 a.m, we'll have them out. We'll have them help out and do A2 duties and all of that stuff. And
cool.
It's been really cool.
That's good.
So what about you?
So I have a 9-year-old daughter, and she is, it's funny, I played acoustic there was a school picnic that one of the moms in the PTA who was organizing it reached out to me. It turns out she's actually, I knew her because she was one of the owners of the Little Brother Brewing where I'm doing the Thursday nights. She hired me for that. And so she reached out to me and said, hey, would you do the music at this school picnic, which I have been to as a dad for years. I think I talked about Chuck Folds a few episodes back.
Yes.
Chuck and his band
Ben
played
Folds'
it a couple
brother.
of years ago.
Yeah.
And other local sort of really great artists who I've loved have been there in other years. This year was me. And,
there you go.
I was I was really honored. And a kid who graduated from that elementary school a couple of years ago opened for me. I think I talked about that on the last episode, which was also great. Super cool kid and amazing to be in his space. And as I was playing that show, my daughter came running up on stage and hugged me real quick and ran away. And I was like, yeah, that's that. There you go. That's the thing. Like, it was going to go one of two ways. She was going to be mortified, right?
That's probably coming. Don't worry.
I'm sure. Or she was going to be proud. And it turns out, for now at least, she's proud. A couple of months ago, we were playing a show at a place in town that really had no business booking us for a date that went until 10 p.m. They're not a 10 p.m. kind of venue. By the time we were done or approaching the end of our set, who was left was my regulars, my family, and my daughter's best friends. All that was left. And they'd been bugging me all night about singing some Taylor Swift. And we don't have any Taylor Swift on our set list. We were unprepared for that. But I know Shake It Off all day long. And so I let her and her two little besties come up and sing on mic Shake It Off. And I walked the bassist and drummer through this tune that there's not a lot to it. It's a 3-chord song. And they totally adored that. It was the best thing ever. So right now, as a band person who is a dad, I am pretty much winning. Now I'm sure the time will come when that will end and my coolness will be over. But right now we're doing all right for as far as that goes. And there's still always the time away factor. You know, Thursday nights, we've kind of had to build our weekly routine around my Thursday night trivia. We built it around the Wednesdays, when it was Wednesdays for a long time, and then that changed. And so the whole house had to reorganize around the change of that date, which was, you know, took a few conversations to make that okay. I don't like to be a dictator of how my house goes, but here it was. I had this opportunity and we talked about it and we made it work. You know, kid right now goes to bed at 8-ish, to bed at 8, lights out at like 9-ish, asleep hopefully by 9:30, which means I'm back from the trivia in time to go kiss her on the head before she's fully asleep. So that's a good thing. We like that a lot. And frankly, at this point, I'm, you know, closing in pretty fast on 50 years old, and I don't really need to do the 10 to 2 gig anymore. I'm kind of over that. Really, anyone who's if you're over 30, I fully endorse you no longer doing the 10 to 2 gig. But it means that I tend to land back at home in time to have the night not be fully over for my family. And I can check in with them and have it be, you know, daddy's back and it's all good. So right now, being a band dad is a pretty cool thing because I am still regarded as a, you know, it's cool. And I can make it work for all the various ways that dadding needs to happen around the house, you know?
Well, you brought something up that is, I think, worth putting focus on.
Yeah.
And it was the people around you have to take a lot into consideration to accommodate
for sure
what it is that you're doing.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if musicians as a species are very good at articulating their gratitude for that kind of thing.
100% not.
But I think that it is something that is 100% worth the time and effort to articulate back to the people in your tribe,
for sure,
the people in your family, your spouses, your partners, for the amount of accommodation they may provide.
Yeah. Yeah. They do so much to make that work for nobody but me.
And, you know, for me, I don't know, there's this whole kind of persona of the lifer musician that unfortunately just kind of like involves you getting divorced, you know? Yep. Something was more important to you than your marriage, than you're on to, you know, you're chasing this thing. That's never appealed to me.
Right.
You know, ultimately I want to be a married person with kids who is, you know, in a relationship with their mother. And part of that involves being grateful and considerate in order to keep that relationship in a healthy spot.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's, you know, even with both of us working, you know, sometimes I take side stuff and sometimes it's like, it's not a big deal at all. It's like, yeah, go, who cares? Just fine. And other times it's like, well, you know, this is impeding other things that could be going on in the house if you were here, and you've got to be willing to either turn stuff down or, you know, find ways to make it up. Like you were saying, you know, trying to find pockets of time or activities or nights that you have to kind of coordinate in order to make up for nights that you're out of the house.
Absolutely.
Ready Player One was a sticking point. We had to watch the movie with our eldest before the end of the weekend because it wasn't going to happen on Thursday, the last day of school, when it was supposed to happen because this gig popped up. So we had to move things around and make it happen. So we didn't podcast on our normal night.
That's right.
And we didn't podcast the next night because of all the other things. So you got to be flexible. You got to be doing the things that you got to do in order to keep people happy and make sure that you're fulfilling your obligations as a parent.
Yep. Yeah. And as a partner, our Wednesday night is date night. It is inviolable. Thou shalt not change date night because, so much other stuff needs to be flexible if you're going to do what we do. And I was reached out to by Bull City Cider Works, which is, I did the trivia at their Lexington shop, the Greensboro shop, who I've played at a lot of ways, reached out and said, hey, could you play our anniversary party? And it's June 17th. And I was like, June 17th? That sounds familiar. Oh, that's my anniversary.
Ruh-roh.
And so
it's a hard no.
Well, I talked to my wife about it. I said, listen, I got this opportunity. I don't have to say yes to it. I guess I'd kind of like to. I don't have, but it is our anniversary too. And, we're in the 20 somethings of years of our anniversary. So it's not like they mean less, but it's sort of like not that big a deal as like, it's not a round number or anything. And she said, yeah, no, we'll celebrate around it. It's fine. It's fine. Do it. So I took the gig. And,
no collateral damage up to this point.
No, I was watching closely. And I have entire faith that there was no subterfuge in that. No, it's fine. Take it. So I do plan for her to be there. I plan to shout out as frontman that, this is anniversary in two ways. Please celebrate both of them with us. And then we'll do something fun the weekend before or after. It's fine. But you have to communicate these things. The number of times I've changed things up on her because something that was important to me happened and I wasn't responsible for what that change would mean for her over the number of years we've been together is huge. And if I can give one piece of advice to my family men, my parents, my dads who are in bands, is don't do that. Don't mess with that, which is a totally different thing from like communicating. Here's an opportunity. I'm not attached to it. What do you think? Having that conversation and working it out together, that's a whole other thing from like, oh, sorry, honey, I booked a thing.
Yeah, communication is super important. And also, I think this is not just a musician thing, it's kind of a freelancer thing. The fear of saying no or turning work down can be kind of terrifying. But I've found that saying no hasn't necessarily impacted my ability to work when I want to.
No.
Some stuff, yes. Other stuff, no, I'm not really, I used to get calls a lot more for solo acoustic stuff, but it was always kind of like an inconvenience and it was always last minute. Yeah. And those things just tended to put my wife out, very short notice, which is not cool.
Right.
And so if I'm getting less of those inquiries, like that's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't particularly care for them as much either. So It is what it is.
Yeah. It's one of the things that we have to understand in order to be in a relationship is that their needs, their desires are absolutely as valid as ours. Mm-hmm. And because ours looks like work, maybe it seems more valid to us, but it's not. It doesn't make it that way.
Nope. It's give and take. And there's definitely been gigs that I've regretted turning down, but I have less of those than I do moments where I was glad that I stayed or, honored my kids or my wife by being around.
Yeah. And hopefully more of those than the ones that you went and played the gig and then regretted it.
Yeah. Resentment's a tricky thing, and it's something that you got to keep under wraps. So if you're taking time out of somebody else's time, then you need to make opportunities to make that time up.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, you don't have to stop.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people, there's this kind of thing that they think that when you become a parent, you kind of have to put certain things aside. And that may be true to a particular degree, but I still feel like I'm the person that I was before I had kids, and I'm doing the things that make me happy.
Yes.
And give me creative fulfillment. But I am doing them in a way that honors the people that I am responsible for and are counting on me.
Yep.
And it's made me a better person. You know, I think about I was talking with a 20-year-old college student that was about to graduate, and she was just saying, I don't think I want kids. And I was like, at 20 years old, I was an absolute dog shit human being. And a lot of times people are like, oh, to be younger again. I don't think so.
No.
I don't, that guy kind of sucked. Like his hair looked great.
Yeah.
And he was in pretty good shape. So while I would definitely trade to look like the person that I was 20 years ago, I would not go back to that time in my life, because I'm definitely much more even keeled, satisfied, fulfilled, and less volatile.
Yeah.
Let's just say.
No, I think back to who I was then. I'm so much more patient, generous. No, I just like who I am a lot more now than I was 20 years ago. Yeah.
So in conclusion, you can be a dad or a mom and still rock out when the time is right.
Here's my one piece of parenting advice.
Okay.
Do what works.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to get all kinds of advice from all kinds of different directions. Do what works. And then when it stops working, change it.
Right. And your situation isn't everybody's situation.
Exactly.
So be willing to listen to other people, but, trust your gut when it comes to your particular situation.
Yeah.
Because you're the only person in that situation besides the person across from you.
Your tiny little baby is going to have the particular things that it needs in order to get put to sleep. It needs its butt patted in a particular way. It needs to be bounced in a particular way. And no other baby needs it just like that. But you'll figure it out, because that's what'll make your baby stop screaming. So
it's true.
Figure it out. Do it. Do what works. Don't take advice. Do what works.
The way I always said it was that parenting is life's next great adventure. So if you're entering the fold, welcome. It's going to be the hardest and potentially the most rewarding thing you've ever done.
Yeah.
But it's the school hard knocks. Like there's not a book. There's not a video series. There is nothing that can prepare you for what you're about to do.
Yeah. You only figure out how to do it by doing it wrong.
Yep. And then you really only realize that you figured it out by looking back and be like, I don't suck at this nearly as bad as I did a year ago.
Something's actually kind of working here. What happened? Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
All right, folks. Congratulations to all the new parents out there in our listener world. Specifically, I want to shout out Adam Moskowitz.
Mazel tov.
The literal Burt Reynolds of the cover band world.
Right.
Him and his partner just had their baby. And then Michael Harris from Diamond Avenue also had their first baby.
Yep.
So congrats to those guys specifically. And if you are also a new parent who's also a musician, let us know about it. Coverbandconfidential@gmail.com. If you want to hear about tips regarding diaper changing while guitar string changing,
listen, I'll tell you.
Join the Patreon.
I was a swaddling ninja. I could swaddle that child tight like a drum. You got to get her tight so the arms can't move, legs can't move. Tight. That's the point of swaddling. And she would just conquer it out. It was the best.
Fantastic. All right, folks. I think that'll do it. This is a bit of a heavier conversation. Not heavy.
No, but important.
Serious.
I think important. Yeah.
I think so. So we're super stoked, each and every one of you, for tuning in every week. We want to help you go further faster, and we want to share in your successes. So share them with us. Or you can do any of the stuff that our good buddy Mike Schulte is about to tell you. But that being said, I will go ahead and call it for this week. In Atlanta, Georgia, I'm Adam Johnson.
In Greensboro, North Carolina, I'm Dan Ray.
You have been listening to the Coverband Confidential podcast for the week of June 2nd, 2023.